Hello, my name is Brent Stabiner. I'm a Central consultant with Logan Consulting. In today's Business Central demo, I will be showing you around the general ledger and banking modules. So when we're setting up the general ledger and banking, the first place that we have to go to is the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts in Business Central is the backbone of the system. The chart of accounts must be set up before we can do any other setup. So it's really important to figure that out first. So here is the sample chart of accounts that is included with Business Central in the sample company. And so you might notice if you are coming from an older system, you might have a segmented chart of accounts. Well, Business Central does not really do a segmented chart of accounts. So first, we have the chart of accounts that just contains the account number. So if you are an organization that has maybe 10 different departments that are part of your chart of accounts, in that case, you might have 10 different office expense accounts or 10 different rent expense accounts, one for each department. Business Central works a little differently. So within the chart of accounts, you just have your account numbers. You have 10 numbers that you can use, up to 10 spaces you can use. You can do numbers or letters, and those are your accounts. And then to account for your departments or divisions or whatever it might be, we have what are called dimensions. At a high level, dimensions are essentially tags that you can put on different records, different transactions that help you slice and dice your data in any way that you want. I will be talking about dimensions in the context of general ledger, but keep in mind dimensions really do apply to across the entire system. So we can the basic generic dimension that you can think of is a department code here. So instead of going through your chart of accounts and looking for the office expense account for, say, the administration department, you instead would just select the one office expense account, and then you would select the administration code for the department dimension. So that's kind of the generic dimension, but they can be used across the entire system for customers, vendors, items, whatever you might. You can use it to sort of separate your customers out into different groups. Maybe you had certain projects that you don't need project accounting for, but you want to keep track of revenues and expenses within a project. Well, we can create a project dimension that gets assigned to sales invoices and purchase invoices, and then we can run reports that say, show me the trial balance for this specific dimension, or this specific project, or So there's a lot of different flexibility you have with these dimensions. Just keep in mind, if you have to select 8 different dimensions just to post a general ledger transaction, that might get a little cumbersome. So, you have to find the right balance between not having too many dimensions, but also having the ones you need to sort of slice and dice your data the way you want. So the combination of dimensions and the chart of accounts and the account numbers are what makes up your chart of accounts. And so once you have that set up, then you can really get into the rest of the general ledger. And so a good place to start after that would be posting groups. So posting groups, again, are found throughout the entire system here. We have, vendor posting groups, customer posting groups, inventory, business, product, bank account. So all the different modules within Business Central have their own posting group. And what it does is it essentially lets you map your GL accounts to specific transaction types. So, starting with, say, vendor posting groups here, it's really straightforward. We can create different codes here for if maybe you have different payables accounts. Maybe you have a domestic U.S. AP account, and then maybe a Canadian or foreign AP account for transactions done in other currencies. Well, we can create different codes for those vendor posting groups and essentially assign them different payables accounts here. You can also use these vendor posting groups as a way to another way to identify your vendors. So maybe you want to split up your vendors by sort of a class ID. Business Central doesn't really have a class ID, but we can create multiple vendor posting groups all with the same accounts but different codes. And again, it's just another way to sort of separate out your data. So there's vendor posting groups, customer posting groups. The main setup would be the general posting groups, so the business and the product. So if I actually go to general posting setup, we can see the business and product posting groups here. The business posting groups get assigned to vendors and customers. The product posting groups get assigned to items. And that combination of business and product posting group lets you assign all these different types of transactions. So on the sales side, there's the generic sales account, there's a credit memo account, discounts, rounding, prepayments, and then we go here, we have the purchasing side. So again, purchasing accounts, purchase credit memos, discounts. And then over here, we have some more inventory related items. So there's cost of goods sold, there's inventory adjustments. And so any sort of combination you have of these different accounts, we need another posting group set up for it. And, we can have certainly ones that are, the same accounts. You can repeat accounts and just change the code. So, a lot of flexibility with these posting groups, but they essentially drive the GL impact of, non-GL transactions. So sales, purchasing, inventory, etc. Also within the finance area here, we have budgets that you can set up. So budgets are pretty straightforward. They work based off of your chart of accounts here. And one thing you might notice with the chart of accounts, and if I'll go back to that, is it's not your standard chart of accounts where it's just a list of accounts. You might see here there's some bolded things that have different account types other than posting, like headers and totals, begin and end totals, and totals here. And so your chart of accounts setup really should be in the same setup as your business balance sheet and income statement. There's a few reasons for that. One, so this is just split up between assets, liabilities, equity. You can get more granular and do, current assets, fixed assets, other assets. And you can get these totals here that give you a really quick glance of, say, your current assets or your current liabilities, or maybe you want a quick glance of your, your gross margin. So you can do a line here that's your gross margin of sales minus cost of goods sold. So one, it's a really quick glance, but two, when you're doing budgets, when you're doing financial reports, having this set up in that format that you like will make creating those budgets and other financial reports very easy. And I will show you that in a little bit. So when it comes to the general or the GL budgets, let me open up this 2021 budget. You'll see here that it brings in your income statement exactly as it is set up in the chart of accounts. So when it comes to actually setting the budget, you can definitely ignore the totals, but it's a good way to have this organized right off the bat without having to do anything. So you have your income statement accounts here across the top in the columns. You can do periods. You could also do your dimensions that I mentioned. So if you wanted to do a departmental budget, you can have your columns be departments. And so here you have admin, production, and sales. And so you can fill that in as well. I'm going to choose period. And then you can do, day, week, month, quarter, year for your columns. And so when you have your periods ready, what you can do is you can just export this to Excel. You could essentially fill in the amounts here. If maybe you just wanted to do a sales budget, you can just enter the amounts here manually, or you can export them to Excel. We want 12 periods with a month length in each, and it starts at 2020. So I'm going to hit OK to export this to Excel. And then once you have this ready, you can fill out this budget as needed and save it. And then once you're done with it, you come back here and import it right back into Business Central. Once you have your budget uploaded, you can run all sorts of budget reports here. You can run a trial balance of your budget. You can also create financial reports that actually show, actual versus budget. And let's talk about those financial reports. So, Business Central comes with a generic trial balance out of the box. There's also these financial statements that you can create. Balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, retained earnings. And those, even though they have options here, those aren't ready to go right away. You actually have to set those up yourself. You do that in account schedules. So here you go to account schedules, the list here. And these are all the account schedules that were set up. And the account schedule is basically taking rows and columns to create a report. Your rows are the GL accounts that are to be included. The columns are, which periods you want. Do you want yearly? Do you want periodic? Do you want, month over month? Do you want this year versus last year? Do you want actual versus budget? And so here I'm going to pull up the balance sheet one. And so these are all of the balance sheet accounts. You can see these, they decided to break it up a little more than the chart of accounts. You can do totals, posting accounts, formulas. You can put in some formatting here to make them look a little nicer. You can do, double underlines for totals. You can format it as bold, italic. You can have it, hide if there's, you can have it hide if it's if it's a zero. So to make it look a little cleaner. And then also I wanted to show, if you wanted to just create a new one here really quick. Actually, I will just use one of these ones here. So let me delete this. And so when you want to create your own report, you can actually insert. You don't have to fill these out rows manually. You can actually insert from your chart of accounts. So that up comes your chart of accounts. And then from here, I could say filter to balance sheet. Now it has all my balance sheet accounts here. And then I can start highlighting ones I want. So I can go down here, or I can highlight all. You do that just by clicking on Shift, holding Shift down and clicking on other rows. And then this top one highlights them all, and I click OK, and it inserts exactly as it is in the chart of accounts. So that's one major reason why having your chart of accounts set up like your normal balance sheet and income statement will be beneficial. You can quickly create that balance, and I didn't filter, but it would quickly create that balance sheet, and you can delete these other rows. So that's kind of how you do the rows. And then there's also the columns that you need to set up. So here's a very basic one where it's just the balance at a date for the balance sheet, and it's always going to go based off the date. So when you run this account schedule, it'll ask for a date to run it as of, and then it'll give the balance at that date. Here you can see, and so let's go to maybe an income statement, or here's a periods one. So here's a period one where you can do the current period, and then maybe the current period minus one period minus two periods to kind of get the trailing couple of months. Here we can do formulas, net change, balance at the date, beginning balance. Here's where we can specify whether it's actual entries or budget entries. And then here's formulas we can do. So we can you can do actual column, a budget column, and then do a formula to find the variance. You can have a column have a formula of a percent of sales, and then here we can have options when to show it. So a lot of great functionality with these account schedules to get you to create these sort of basic financial statements. A couple other things within the general ledger. Your GL, if you're doing entering transactions in other modules like banking, AP, AR, sales order, purchase order, those GL accounts, those GL entries will all happen kind of automatically when you post their invoices. But if you need to do just standard journal entries, we have the general journal. So the general journal is where you do your general journal entries. This could be usually just reclassifications or something like that. So they have different batches here. This is the sort of condensed view. If you just wanted to enter accounts, you pick your account down here, and we have debits and credits. So I can debit here for 10. I can enter, when you search for the account, you don't have to know the account number. I can search for, advertising, for example, and there's the advertising expense. I can change these descriptions like reclass, 11, 12, reclass 11, 12, and I can put the other 10 here. And then here we have a total balance. If I, if I fat fingered it and entered 12, for example, it would tell me, hey, it's out of balance. I can't post that, so I have to change it back to 10. Now the total balance is 0. There's also this view here. If I hit page and hit show more columns, you can get a much more kind of advanced view. And what this lets you do, in the other view, you have to kind of cycle through different document numbers and do one document at a time. But maybe you wanted to do, 5 documents, 5 journal entries at the same time with different document numbers. You can hit show more columns, and I can go here, and then when I do a new line, it gives me a new document number. So that's an option there. Also with this view, if I, let's say, delete this line, a lot of journal entries are just kind of 1 line or 2 line journal entries, in one account, out another account. And in that case, you can set it up so it's only a 1 line. And how that works is there's a balancing account over here that I can choose my advertising expense. And what that does is it tells the journal entry, hey, you take the same information and just enter it as a credit here. So this is a debit for $10, and then the credit goes to that account. When you're ready to post, you can hit this preview post, and it'll kind of summarize the journal entry for you. I can click on the 2 entries, and it shows here I debit, because it's a positive, I debit this account for $10, and I credit the other account for $10. You also, if you wanted to, we can set up approval workflows. So we can set up for just the batch or by line, where you would submit that for approval. We would set up a workflow where that workflow would have an approver. That approver would get an email saying you have a journal entry to review. That approver could then review it and approve it. Once it's approved, the person who entered the journal entry would get an email saying it's been approved. You can go ahead and post it now, and then post the batch. Once you post those journal entries, so I'm going to go ahead and post this. Let's put a posting date of today. And I go ahead and post this transaction. It was successfully posted. Now that ends up in what are called the general ledger entries. If I search ledger entries, you'll see there are lots of different ledger entries reports here. There's fixed assets, there's item, vendor, customer. So every module has its own ledger entries where those module specific transactions end up. So if you're posting a purchase invoice, you'll have a vendor ledger entry. You might have a tax ledger entry if there's taxes you worry about, and then you'll have a GL, a general ledger entry. And that's where these end up. So if I sort by descending here, you'll see the transaction, even though it was 1 line, it shows up in the GL entries as 2 lines. So it's a really quick, easy way to enter those types of transactions. And this is where all of my journal entries are, even ones from other modules. And you can export these to Excel if you would like. And we can run, create Power BI reports that analyze this table and allow you to slice and dice that which way you want. So that is the general ledger. Let's move on to banking side of things. So first we'll start with bank accounts. So this is where you set up all of your accounts that you have with the different banks. You'll see there's this bank account linking status. It's currently not linked, but we can actually set up this it's called the Yodlee bank feed. And what that does is that you sign in with your normal online banking credentials, and that links this account to your accounts to that feed. And what that feed does is it lets you quickly import your cleared transactions for a bank rec. So you might be used to having to maybe manually check off, use an Excel sheet and manually print out the statement and sort of manually check it off. That certainly is one way of doing your bank rec. But in Business Central makes it easy. We have this bank feed I just mentioned. You can also just kind of do an export of a file from your bank's website, and we can set up an import so it imports those clear transactions into the bank rec. Either way, both of those options would save a lot of time compared to manual. And then there's also some automated ways of actually matching those transactions. So if you're linking the account, it doesn't have a 100% success rate with every single bank. But you can, but if you don't set it up with that, with the service, you can certainly use the file, which is just a couple extra small steps. You can even set up to have the bank statement automatically import within a certain frequency. So maybe the first day of every month you do the automatic import, or you schedule the automatic import. So when you go into your bank rec, the transactions are there. Otherwise, it's just a few button clicks that I'll show you in a second. If we go back to the general journal really quick, with this expanded view here, we actually get the account type is going to be GL for general ledger transactions, but any transaction that hits a bank account. So you might just have a bank transactions like fees or like wire fees or monthly service fees that get pulled out automatically. You can enter this bank account as your transaction. Choose your bank account. You can choose a balancing account over here, like your, or maybe it's bank fee or interest expense here. And I can enter in the $15, and if I preview post that, what you'll see is that it actually hits a bank account ledger entry. So anytime a bank account is involved, you'll have a bank account ledger entry. So that obviously would be payments, customer payments, vendor payments, bank transactions. And all of those bank account ledger entries will end up in your bank rec. So if I go here to bank reconciliations, here's one that I have already started, but it works pretty, pretty standard. You enter in your last statement balance. Your last statement balance will come from the bank account setup, and then you enter your ending balance here. And so I said it was just a couple clicks of a button. If you go here to import bank statement, that's what you would do. If you have the bank feed set up, all that comes up is a little box showing a start date and an end date, and you enter that and hit OK, and it brings in the transactions here. If you have the file set up, you would just click this, and a dialog would come up for you to choose that file. And again, just a couple button clicks, and they show up here. And then you also have the ability to automatically match. So if I remove the match here, what it'll do is it'll look at the date, look at the amount, and try to find that same transaction over here. So if I hit match automatically, I can give it a tolerance. So, there might be times where you enter a BC bank transaction on a Friday and it doesn't clear the bank till a Monday. So you can give it kind of a day, maybe a 3 or 4 day tolerance, but you hit OK, and it highlights it in green so it knows it matched, and it matches those transactions. And then here on the bank account setup, a few things just to point out. You can put in your bank account number there and your transit number down here, and that will let you, do EFT payments. And then here we have a bank account posting group. So I mentioned all those posting groups. One of them is the bank account, and that links that bank account to the GL account. So when I do a bank account transaction, it knows which GL account to deduct from.